PETAShy by Chelis. If Fluttershy's room could be described in one word, that word would be Zaboomafoo. The temperate forest wallpaper and grass-green carpet gave off the feeling that her room was a small meadow deep in a forest. As a child, she had shown a healthily unhealthy obsession with animals and nature. The passion, although not in any apparent violation of any animal welfare laws, didn't stop school officials from worrying about it. The first time she was sent to the school psychologist for an evaluation was during the 3rd grade, when the teacher had given one of those cliché "Who am I?" assignments to the class. Fluttershy's entry was average when it came to the writing portion. In response to "Who do you want to be?", favorite color, and favorite subject, she put down the unsurprising answers of vet, green, and animals and nature. What set off the teacher was Fluttershy's drawing of herself as a winged pony. There was nothing wrong with the child's artistic talent. Rather, such concern arose because teacher had specifically written, told the entire class while staring directly at Fluttershy, and had even spoke to her privately that the drawing had to be human. Ever since the first time she was sent, many of those who worked in the school district psychology department asked her parents whether they were concerned about their daughter's obsession with nature. And each time they were given the new age, "Children should have the right to express themselves how they see fit, and adults shouldn't dictate a child's interests" speech. The counselor had only let out a cold sigh, tick uncooperative parents on Fluttershy's record, and hoped the child would make it through school without getting bullied too much. Fast forward a decade later. Fluttershy had grown up defying the psychologists. She wasn't bullied too much growing up. She became somewhat of an outcast, save her girlfriends, the eco-kids at school, or the adults and teens from the co-op she and her friends frequented. Apart from the small circle and what little interaction she had answering questions from her weekly animal shelter volunteer drive, her social life was comfortably boring. Until tonight, that is. Tonight was a special night for the young woman. In preparation, she had an early dinner and set her cat, rabbit, and bird to sleep in their cages and beds. She also cleaned her room, a task that took longer than it should for most teenage girls owing to the amount of stuffed animals that flooded the floor. However, it was a cheaper and more sanitary alternative from real exotic animals. Fluttershy was expecting a boy to come to her room tonight. She was nervous and excited for his arrival. Green Cycle, a boy in her biology class, agreed to the plan to get him into her room. She was to leave a tall ladder in the bushes below the window of her 2nd-story room. Getting the plan hammered out was difficult because Fluttershy couldn't stop staring at his dreamy green eyes, dreadlocks the same color that he had grown out since they were kids, and his tall and muscular stature. After she finished with the room and took a long shower, Fluttershy quickly slipped out of her towel into something more comfortable. She knew exactly what type of outfit would excite a guy like Green Cycle and prepared it ahead of time. Black pants, black turtleneck, and a knit cap with a dark gray backpack. At around 9, she heard rustling down from her room window with a slight sound of the metal ladder being set in place. Moments later, she saw him climb up the ladder, dressed in all black as well. In what had turned into a tradition between them, his attempt at a friendly hello was met with a squeaky, "Hey," as she stood blushing, almost receding into a corner. She had done this since they were kids, but he understood all the same. Green Cycle simply had to offer his hand, and she accepted. Being the gentleman, he led her down the stairs before he followed. She looked on as he put the ladder away. He led her past a small gate that separated the front and the backyard to the beat-up, windowless, marooned van that parked in front of her house. His chivalrous streak continued when he opened the van door for her and led her inside to the 6 shadows in there. Fluttershy immediately recognized them as her friends from school when the driver turned on the lights in the back of the van. They knew better than to let Fluttershy in a dark room full of people and not expect screaming. "Fluttershy, what's up, chick? How are you, Fluttershy?" Fluttershy reviewed those greetings and a lot of hugs from her friends as the van drove off into the night past the suburbia and headed towards the city. The second the van hit the highway, Green's cell phone started to ring from his spot in the passenger seat and he answered the call. After he hung up and set his phone on the cup holder, he laid out the plan for the night. "Listen up, guys. The security guard for the place will be out for a 2-hour break tonight, and that's when we will strike. Someone is already in the area and will open the doors and gates for us when the guard leaves. From there, we'll go to the lab and get the animals into the van. The co-op will hold on to the animals for us until the sanctuary can take them all in." After what felt like forever, they pulled and stopped in the alley across from the animal testing facility. The facility had a steel black fence surrounding the landscape lawn resembling an average office with large pane windows. The eco-kids waited for an hour in that van, munching on fruits and vegetables that were for the animals they were planning to rescue before they got their long-awaited chance to strike. As soon as the private security car being driven by the overweight, balding man started up and left, the adult co-op member opened the front gate by using the electrical fuse box near the guard box. Everyone in the van was given a small plastic flashlight and the instructions of stick together, don't panic, and if you get caught, do not squeal. Got it? Everyone nodded in agreement as the van door rolled open and they made their way out, stretching from the hours of sitting in the cramped vehicle. The driver drove off to the loading dock at the back of the building while the saboteur who opened the gate proceeded to pick the front door lock and did it within a minute. One of the kids from the co-op from another school actually interned at the facility a month before for this particular operation. He discovered 3 things about the installation. No security alarms to cut costs, likewise the security cameras were fake, and the animals were in small cages in a kennel, so moving the animals would be a breeze. The interior had the feel of a doctor's office with a receptionist's desk, a waiting room, and month-old magazines, and most importantly they found what they came here for in the first place. "Jackpot," Green Cycle said as his eyes lit up. The kids spent the next half an hour going through the documents from the file cabinets. They opened and took the hard drives from computers and took the small computer tower from the director's office being used as a server to hold more company records. They began to stuff their bags with the items, hoping to find any companies connected with the facility and their practices and to expose them. While the adult and the driver were left behind to move the bags of data in the computer tower into the van, the rest made their way to the testing area. They passed through the wide hallways and doors that looked like a medical facility with bins on the gate to hold patient records. Suddenly there was a concern. "Wait, where's the kennel?" Sweetleaf suddenly asked in worry. Guys, it's right ahead of us. It says kennel." Fluttershy began to answer, but was interrupted by Starlight. "Oh hey, it's right ahead of us. It even says kennel on it." The enclosure looked like any other kennel, with stainless steel cages and clean floors, though the notable exception was the sickly and malnourished animals housed within. "Lights on, kids," Greencycle ordered, though even with the flashlights, many of them were struggling in the dark. Greencycle couldn't help but say, should have gotten the bigger lights. The klutzy group member, Flower Child, began to reach around in the dark and found something shaft-like in the darkness and screamed, "I found the light!" as she proceeded to pull it, even as everyone screamed at her not to. What Flower Child didn't see was the label emergency latch switch below the lever, and when she pulled the lever, a bell went off and the latches sprung open. As soon as Starlight found the light switch, the devastation was already done. All the animals were out and running around in desperation to escape the place. The group tried to corral the animals, but it was of no use. They weren't listening. "This is bad," Greencycle began to be concerned. "At this rate, we might not have enough time." Amid the chaos, Fluttershy stood silently, her thoughts solely on the fate of the animals when the company would discover they were targeted. She knew the company would now spend money on actual security, and that meant the animals' only chance of freedom would be gone. The thought of these animals being stuck in this horrible fate forever started the waterworks for the sensitive Fluttershy. Tears rolled down her cheeks while she held her mouth, trying to keep it all in. As if her mind decided to make matters worse, it conjured images of the animals dying alone in the cages. Finally, she broke down and began crying as she gingerly fell on her knees with her head down. As soon as the crying started, the animals suddenly stopped in place, as if by command. They all looked in unison to the crying teen and moved toward her, rubbing themselves against her, trying to cheer her up. At that point, all jaws were dropped. Greencycle instantly saw this as a chance and asked Fluttershy to see if they would listen to her and get them to follow her to the van. "I don't know. They might not even—" He immediately interrupted her. "This might be their only hope. You have to try, for them." She took a deep breath and gave him a nervous but determined smile. "Hello, my small friends. We're going to get you out of here. Now, follow me, please," she said gently as she slowly walked backward, holding Greencycle's hand as he guided her to the shipping area. "This is amazing," laughed Sweetleaf. "This is a miracle. Gaia's watching over us right now," screamed Flower Child. The kids were behind the animals, making sure none of them strayed or had been left behind in the kennels. Within a few minutes, the animals were let outside and into the van, which shocked the driver and the adult. The van's drive to the co-op farm was a quiet one. Everyone was trying to not set off the animals. All the animals, dogs, cats, rabbits, and one monkey, were on Fluttershy's lap or sleeping next to her while she sang a lullaby to them. An hour later, they were on the outskirts of their town and on the co-op farm. The giant red barn door was open and other co-op members were waiting expectantly inside. The driver put the van backward with the back facing the barn opening, then killed the engine. The farm members opened the van door and they were shocked to see a pile of sleeping animals on Fluttershy. They gingerly lifted the animals off her and placed them in pens, separating the animals by species and then by sex. Mr. Green, the head of the co-op, walked from the farmhouse when he heard the news. "I don't know how you did it, but this has to be one of the most amazing things that have ever happened on the farm." That's not the best part, Greencycle said as he shined a light on the piles of bags and computers behind the driver's seat. We'll finally find out who's been funding them. Fluttershy expected her parents to come up and either yell or congratulate her, but so far, no luck. Mr. Green, do you know where my parents are? She asked. They went home, but I don't think they know you were in on this. Tell you what, they ground you, call me and I'll vouch for you. You deserve it for saving the raid, said Mr. Green. The kids didn't stay long to find out the success of the raid. They were all exhausted and wanted to crash for the night. The eco-kids crammed into the van one last time and the driver began the task of dropping off everyone. At every stop, the person leaving said their goodbyes, but not before giving Fluttershy a huge hug and a big thank you. As each person left, the sound in the van began to lower. When it was left to the driver, Greencycle, and Fluttershy, it was silent. Even after tonight, Flutter still couldn't work out the courage to start a conversation with Greencycle. The driver killed the van in front of her house while Greencycle and Fluttershy left the van and began the process of sneaking her back in, ladder and all. I don't know how you did it, Fluttershy, but you saved the plan. You have my eternal gratitude. Greencycle smiled as they were alone together in the semi-darkness, with the only light coming from the small nightlight by the door. If Fluttershy's blushing wasn't noticeable before, it was now obvious as the boy reached in for a kiss on the forehead. See you in class Monday, he said as he went down the ladder. He even had the courtesy to put the ladder back in the shed before he left. Fluttershy stood by the window in shock from the kiss for a good 3 minutes, then bursted in excitement. She let out a squeak and giggled like a schoolgirl while falling back on her bed, nearly landing on her cat. Her exhaustion finally caught up with her because it all went black the second she closed her eyes. Fluttershy's room was within an earshot of the giant bird's nest her parents put in the nearby tree. So come dawn, the birds were unusually cheerful today, as if they were sharing in the victory the young girl had celebrated last night. Fluttershy was in the surreal state of being awake but still asleep. Did that happen last night? She asked herself, staring at the blue sky ceiling in her room filled with clouds and pink and yellow butterflies. Fluttershy then looked down to see her body in panic. Black pants, black turtleneck, and the black knit cap that was still on her head. Suddenly she heard a vibration coming from her cell phone sitting on the nightstand. The young woman opened it to reveal she had a text message from Dad. Your mom and I know what you did last night. We found the ladder sticking out of the bushes when we got home. We were planning to ground you, but when Mr. Green told us about what happened, we decided not to. In fact, we're proud of you. You are a young woman now, and doing what you believe in is part of growing up. Funny that it was your mother saving us during a slaughterhouse raid is how we met. Anyhow, text me when you're awake. Everyone is at the farm and would love to thank you personally.